Hello everyone. Today my topic is going to be about mental strength and virtues, hope and optimism. The topic will be covering 11 objectives which are, so let us start with what mental strengths are. Mental strengths are attributes that allows an individual to endure through the hardest situations without losing self-confidence. It's an extremely difficult thing to master, but a combination of training and desire can harden your mind. Mental strengths are essential characteristics and differences between people who excel and people who quit without going get stuff. If you quit once, then the next time a difficult situation crops up, the chances that you will quit are even more likely. There has been an interest in studying and identifying human strengths. Obviously, it was a huge interest for psychologists because it was something they could work with their clients on developing. Each culture values human virtues, with difference being the way it is chosen to express or enact that virtue differs between societal values and norms. There are 6 classes of virtues that are made up of 24 character strength. First, wisdom and knowledge. Second, courage. Third, humanity. Fourth, justice. Fifth, temperance. And sixth, transcendence. Martin Seligman and his colleagues studied all major religions and philosophical traditions and found that the same 6 virtues were shared in practically all the cultures across 3 millennia. Let us discuss all the virtues one by one. First is virtue of wisdom and knowledge. Strengths that accompany this virtue involve acquiring and using knowledge. It includes creativity. For example, Albert Einstein's creativity led him to acquire knowledge and wisdom about the universe. Second, curiosity, open-mindedness, love of learning, perspective and wisdom. A fun fact is that many studies have found that adults' self-ratings of perspective and wisdom do not depend on age, which contrasts the popular idea that our wisdom increases with age. To simplify, the more curious and creative you allow yourself to become, the more you gain perspective and wisdom, and you will in turn love what you are learning because you are developing a virtue of wisdom and knowledge. Second is virtue of courage. Strengths that accompany this virtue involve accomplishing goals in the face of things that oppose it. It includes bravery, persistence, integrity, vitality. To simplify, the braver and more persistent we become, the more our integrity will increase and we will reach a state of feeling vital. This will result in being more courageous in character. Third is virtue of humanity. Strengths that accompany this virtue include caring and befriending others. It includes love, kindness, social intelligence. To simplify, there is a reason why Oprah Winfrey is seen as symbol of virtue for humanitarians. On every show, she approaches her guests with respect, appreciation, and interest. Social intelligence. She practices kindness through her charity, work, and makes sure that she knows her love to her friends and family, something that has been reported on numerous accounts. Fourth is the virtue of justice. Strengths that accompany this virtue include those that build a healthy and stable community. It includes being an active citizen, socially responsible, loyal, and a team member. Fairness, leadership. To simplify, Mahatma Gandhi was a leader of the Indian independence movement in British-ruled India. He led India to independence and helped create movements for civil rights and freedom by being an active citizen in non-violent disobedience. His work has been applied worldwide for its universality. Fifth is virtue of temperance. Strengths that are included in this virtue are those that protect against excess. It includes forgiveness and mercy, humility and modesty, prudence, self-regulation and self-control. To simplify, being forgiving, merciful, humble, prudent and under control of your behaviors and instincts will prevent you from being arrogant, selfish, or any other trait that is excessive. Sixth is virtue of transcendence. Strengths that accompany this virtue includes those that forge connections to the larger universe and provide meaning. It includes appreciation of beauty and excellence, gratitude, hope, humor and playfulness, spirituality or a sense of purpose. To simplify, Dalai Lama is transcendent being, as he never loses hope in humanity's potential, always appreciates nature in its perfection, is frequently seen smiling, and is living out what he believes to be his intended purpose. The next portion of my topic deals with hope. In classical Greek literature, Aristotle used the word hope, elpis, to refer to expectation of both positive or negative future. However, when Aristotle wanted to indicate specifically a hope for a positive future or good things, he generally used the term eulipis, hopeful. Interestingly, Aristotle stated that one cannot truly hope unless one has experienced fear. According to the Christian tradition, hope constitutes one of the three theological virtues. Along with faith and love, that is charity, Augustine describes hope, faith, and love as graces rather than virtues. He held love and hope are interdependent, that are both dependent on faith. Thomas Aquinas made a distinction between natural virtues, which can be achieved by one's own efforts, and infused virtues, which are brought by the grace of God. The infused virtues are made up of the theological virtues, that are faith, hope, and love, and the cardinal virtues, that are temperance, courage, justice, and prudence. Hope in the theological sense is made possible by faith, and the two together are conditions for the possibility of love. Aquinas also distinguished hope in the secular sense from wishes and desires, claiming that hope must meet the four conditions. First, hope must be for something good. Second, hope's object must be in the future. Third, hope's object must be something demanding and not easy to attain. And fourth, hope's object must be attainable. Snyder, Irving, and Anderson in 1991 defined hope as positive motivational state that is based on an interactively derived sense of successful A. agency involving, that is goal-directed energy, and B. pathways involving planning to meet goals. The beginnings of a scientific study of hope date back to the 1960s and 1970s since its introduction into academic research. Hope has been conceptualized in many ways and against several varying theoretical backgrounds. Hope was described as a one-dimensional phenomenon by Menninger in 1959, Maurer in 1960, Stotland in 1969, a two-dimensional phenomenon by Snyder in 1991, a construct involving three factors by Miller and Powers in 1988, or as a phenomenon based on four primary rules by Averill in 1990, or five themes by Hirth in 1992 and 1998, or seven components by Morse or Doberneck in 1995. Numerous other approaches to hope have been employed. Hope has been defined as hopeful thinking by Snyder in 2000, positive emotional experience by Fredrickson in 2009, character strength by Peterson and Seligman in 2004, or a transcendental phenomenon by Emmons in 2005, Wayland 2008. The multitude of different perspectives of hope complicates any attempts to merge approaches into the coherent whole. Nevertheless, most scientists agree that hope is primarily connected with positive expectations of the future outcomes. However, there is a need to clarify the distinction between hope and other related constructs such as optimism, self-efficacy, self-determination, and resilience, among others. A complex approach to hope was adapted by Default and Martocchio in 1985, who defined hope as multi-dimensional life force characterized by a confident yet uncertain expectation of achieving a future good which to the hoping person is realistically possible and personally significant. They identified 6 dimensions which reflect the multidimensional nature of hope and can either operate independently or in conjunction with other. The 6 dimensions are: first, affective dimension concerns the emotions and sensations related to the hoping process. It covers the hoping person's feeling of attraction to the desirable outcome or goal, feelings of both confidence and uncertainty about the outcome, and a sense of personal significance of the object of hope for the person's well-being. Second, cognitive dimension encompasses a wide range of thinking processes and cognitive strategies. For example, identification of the object of hope, assessment of the probability of achieving the goal, discrimination of both internal and external hope promoting factors from hope inhibiting factors, and use of imagination. Third, behavioral dimension includes psychological, physical, social, and spiritual actions, that is, specific behavioral activities aimed at achieving the desired goal. Fourth, affiliative dimension is related to an individual's interpersonal relationships and connections to natural or spiritual world. It includes a sense of relatedness, intimacy, and mutuality. Fifth, temporal dimension concerns an individual's experience of time in relation to the hoping process. While hoping is typically directed towards the future, it may also involve past, in the form of positive memories, providing encouragement and belief in the possibility of hopes being fulfilled, and the present, which provides grounds for the future goals and desires. Sixth, contextual dimension builds on the fact that objects of hope are set and activated within a specific context. The contextual dimension focuses on life situations and circumstances that are the part of person's hope. For example, age, developmental period of the individual, and hierarchy of needs. With respect to the degree of specificity of hope, Dufault and Martocchio in 1985 distinguished between generalized hope, that is, positive but indefinite expectation about future grounded, and particularized hope, focusing on specific future outcomes. O'Hara in 2003 said that hope can be viewed as having both internal, subjective existence to be owned by the individual and an external, objective existence that is out there somewhere. Schrank, Stang, Heleny, and Slade in 2009 defined hope as primarily future-oriented expectation, sometimes but not always informed by negative experiences such as mental illness of attaining personally valued goals, relationships, or spirituality, where attainment, first, will give meaning, second, is subjectively considered realistically or possible, and third, depends on personal activity or characteristics, example, resilience and courage, or external factors, example, resource availability. The authors distinguished 4 basic components of hope. First is cognitive, for example, experience, goal, setting, planning and assessment of the probability of success. Second is affective, for example, reliability, humor, positive emotions. Third is behavioral, example, motivation and action. Fourth is external factors, example, availability of resources, healthcare, relationships. Now what comes next are those theories and approaches to hope that emphasize its cognitive dimension. A. Hope as a cognitive style. Hope can be viewed either as an emotional state or as a cognitive and motivational state prompting the hoping person to reach a goal. Lopez in 2013 believes that the way in which people think about the future, that is how they hope, determines their success in the relationships, career and business. Snyder, the author of the cognitive theory of hope, defined hope as the sum of perceived capacities to produce routes to desired goals, along with the perceived motivation to use those routes. In other words, hope is seen as positive motivational state that is based on an interactively derived sense of A. Agency, goal-oriented energy, and B. Pathways planning to meet the goals. Snyder's cognitive hope theory perceives hoping as involving four components. First, agency. Second, pathways. Third, goal. And fourth is the barriers. Agency refers to the motivation and energy one possesses to be able to undertake the routes towards one's goals. Lopez in 2013 assumes that over time, people develop and build capacity for persistence and long-time efforts that make them the authors of their lives. Second one, the pathways. It refers to the routes people take to achieve their desired goals and individuals' perceived ability to produce these routes. The pathways component of hope requires the anticipation of varying means and paths, the ability to assess their effectiveness and understanding of the causal relations. Many people can generate multiple pathways, multiple pathway thinking, from which they can select most suitable or simple one. Both agency and pathways are essential for goal attainment. Goals are abstract mental targets that guide human behaviors. The targets play a highly important role in human thinking because they provide a direction and an endpoint. Their effect is both motivational and invigorating, and it reflects the strength of an individual's resolution to achieve the desired outcome. Thus, targets are an indispensable part of the process. An essential characteristic of the target is the subjective value. Barriers impede the attainment of desired goals. If a barrier occurs, the hoping person will either give up or use pathway thoughts to create new routes. Barriers disturb the simplicity of goal attainment and force people to conjure up more effective pathways. Yet, they need to be viewed as natural parts of life that can occur at any moment. Moreover, to exhibit a positive impact on the hoping person's motivation, the goal needs to be attainable. The probability of achieving the goal lies between 0, that is, goal cannot be achieved, and 100%, that is, goal is attainable under any circumstances. The greatest motivational force is associated with medium probability goals. Snyder in 2002 distinguished between basic types of goals. A. Positive or approach goals. It includes a goal that is desired for the first time, a goal which serves to maintain an already achieved goal, a goal aimed at continuous progress when some advances have already been made. B. Negative goals. It includes to stop or deter something before it happens, to delay or deter the occurrence of something happening. According to Snyder in 2000, hope can be understood either as a changeable state determined by life events which the individual experiences, or as a relatively stable personality trait, for example, dispositional hope. Based on his research into correlates of hope as a personality trait, Snyder came to distinguish between high hopers and low hopers. High hopers do not give up when faced with obstacles. Rather, they view their problems as manageable and try to rise to the challenge and seek alternative solutions. Low hopers, on the other hand, view obstacles as traps from which it would be very difficult to escape. The two types also differ in the number of goals they set for themselves. Low hopers often tend to hold on to a single goal, while those with high hope levels are more flexible with respect to their goals and are readier to create alternative ones. Further differences experienced by the two types are related to stress coping capacity, intensity of negative emotions, and the time needed for recovery. In addition, it was found that high hopers tend to set goals that are completely in accordance with the value system and that make their lives meaningful, while low hopers tend to feel less strongly about their goals. Coming to the next approach, which is hope as a positive emotion. While the previous section dealt with the hope as a cognitive strategy, the present section focuses on hope as an emotional state. Individuals' perspective of themselves, other people, and the world in general affects their emotional state and vice versa. Cognitive processes are influenced by emotions. Negative interpretations of events produce negative emotions. Optimistic thoughts, on the other hand, leads to a positive emotion. This principle is utilized in cognitive therapy and rational emotive therapy, which was given by Beck in 1976 and Ellis in 2001, which employ a range of powerful therapeutic tools and techniques. The affective component of subjective well-being is comprised of the frequency and the intensity of positive and negative emotions. While the adverse effects of long-term recurrent negative emotions, anxiety, fear, anger, guilt, on the health and the life quality have been relatively well investigated, positive emotions and their effects have largely been sidelined by psychology researchers, said by Fredrickson in 1998. In his cognitive theory of hope, Snyder emphasized the thinking aspect of hope, thus subordinating the emotional aspect of hope to the cognitive one. Positive emotions were understood as products of goal pursuit, cognition, and successful goal attainment. There is evidence that dispositional hope positively correlates with positive emotions and negatively correlates with negative emotions. Maurin in 1960 viewed hope as an emotion associated with the expectation of pleasurable stimuli, driving movement towards one's goals. Lazarus in 1999 conceptualized hope as an emotion arising from the expectation to attain the desired goals. While negative emotions stem from delay or unattainment of goals, positive emotions result from conditions that facilitate goal attainment. Hope can provoke efforts to seek improvement of an unsatisfactory situation and is therefore considered a vital coping resource against despair. Hope as an emotion which motivates behavior was also described by Farron, Hirth, Popovich in 1995. Averill, Catlin and Shawn in 1990, Averill in 1994 proposed an emotion theory of hope which is based on hope meeting the following four rules. First, prudential rule, that is, probability of a goal attainment is realistic. Second, moralistic rule, that is, what is hoped for is deemed to be personally or socially acceptable. Third, priority rule, that is, outcomes and events are appraised as important. Fourth, action rule, that is, there is willingness to take appropriate action. Fredrickson in 2009 sees hope as occupying a special place among positive emotions such as joy, gratitude, serenity, interest, pride, amusement, inspiration, awe, and love. However, while positive emotions typically develop when we feel comfortable and safe, hope is often related to difficult and challenging situations. Coming to the third approach, that is, hope as a character strength. According to Erickson, hope is the basic strength, virtue or ego competence of the first 8 developmental stage, one that rises from successful resolution of the identity crisis faced by the individual at that stage and which is related to the basic trust versus basic mistrust. Hope, as conceived by Erickson, is a type of innate driving motivating the child to act to achieve his or her goals. He sees basic hope as being particularly important for psychosocial development because it develops first and becomes the most permanent of all the ego strengths, paving the way for the next. Ego competences with which it participates in the process of shaping the individual's personality. Thus, basic hope is seen as a prerequisite for all other strengths. In positive psychology, character strengths and virtues are understood as those personality traits which not only facilitate effective coping with difficult life situations but also promote successful social functioning, self-development, and goal attainment. Snyder and Lopez in 2009 defined character strength as the capacities that people have for thinking, feeling, and behaving and which enable them to flourish. Lindley in 2008 understands character strength as encompassing intellectual character strengths, components of social and intelligence and virtues. According to him, character strengths begin to show themselves in early childhood and they can be retained and cultivated throughout the life. Recognizing and utilizing these strengths gives us a feeling of authenticity, a feeling that we are ourselves. Moreover, character strengths also constitute an important source of inner energy and motivation. The relatively new concept of perceived hope is broader than that of the dispositional hope. Perceived hope refers to hopeful feelings in the sense of having a deep trust in positive outcomes, particularly in difficult life situations that are beyond our direct control. This latest conceptualization of hope accommodates two different perspectives on hope: the individualistic and cognitive versus transcendental and emotional. Kraft, the author of the concept of perceived hope, aims to fulfill the missing pieces in Snyder's theory, such as the spiritual and the relational aspects. The next portion of my topic deals with optimism. Optimists are people who expect good things to happen to them. Pessimists are people who expect bad things happen to them. Folk wisdom has long held that this difference among the people is important in many, if not at all, aspects of living. Folk wisdom is not always accurate. However, this belief has received much support in contemporary research. As we describe in this chapter, optimists and pessimists differ in several ways that have a big impact on their lives. They differ in how they approach the problems and challenges, and they differ in the manner and the success with which they cope with the adversity. The term derives from the Latin optimum, meaning best. Being optimistic is defined as expecting the best possible outcome from any given situation, said by Merriam-Webster in 2017. There are two ways to define optimism. Shire and Carver define optimism as the global generalized tendency to believe that one will generally experience good versus bad outcomes in life. In everyday language, this means looking on the bright side of life. In such a definition, pessimism is the tendency to believe if something will go wrong for me, it will. The other main way to define optimism is to use the concept of explanatory style. This is the approach taken by Martin Seligman, is the one which is almost appropriate for us to understand. Martin Seligman's approach is called as learned optimism. So what is learned optimism? Seligman came to the concept of learned optimism through a scientific study of learned helplessness, the idea that certain recurring negative event is out of the person's control. He noticed that while some subjects blamed themselves for negative outcomes, others blamed the experiment for setting them up to fail. Seligman shifted his focus to attempting to discover what is it that keeps some people from ever becoming helpless. The answer was optimism. Using his knowledge about the conditioning people to be helpless in the lab, he shifted his focus to conditioning people to be optimists. The result of these experiments led to defining the processes of learning optimism. When people confront adversity or difficulty, they experience a variety of emotions ranging from excitement and eagerness to anger, anxiety and depression. The balance among these feelings appears to relate to people's degree of optimism or pessimism. Optimists are people who expect to have positive outcome even when things are hard. This confidence should yield a mix of feelings that is relatively positive. Pessimists expect negative outcomes. This doubt should yield a greater tendency towards negative feelings, anxiety, guilt, anger, sadness or despair. Seligman's process of learning optimism compromises of a simple technique to train a new way of responding to adversity, specifically by learning to talk to themselves. It begins with the Ellis ABC model of adversity, belief and consequences. Adversity is the event that happens. Belief is how that adversity is interpreted, and consequences are the feelings and actions that result from the beliefs. In learned optimism, importance is placed on first understanding of one's current reaction to and interpretation of the adversity. Learners are asked to keep a journal for 2 days in which they note small adverse events and the beliefs and the consequences that followed. Next, the learner returns to the journal to highlight pessimism, example, pervasiveness. It doomed me, in their written description of the events. To the ABC model, Seligman adds D, that is disputation, and E, energization. Disputation centers on generating counter evidence to any of the following: the negative beliefs in general, the causes of the event or the implications. D also means reminding oneself of any potential usefulness of moving on from the adversity. Disputation here in case of traffic example might sound like this: I am overreacting, I don't know what situation he is in. Maybe he is on his way to his daughter's piano recital and is running late. I'm sure I have cut people off before without meaning to, so I should really cut him a break. I'm not in a way hurry anyway. Over time, responses like this are predicted to change feelings to be more hopeful and positive. Successful disputation leads to energization, the E in the ABCDE model. One is energized and should indeed try to actively celebrate the positive feelings and the sense of accomplishment that come from successful distribution of negative beliefs. Disputation and energization, that is celebration, are the keys to Seligman's method. Other differences exist between the pessimists and the optimists in terms of explanatory style, which are: first is permanence. Optimistic people believe bad events to be more temporary than permanent and bounce back quickly from failure, whereas others may take longer periods to recover or may never recover. They also believe good things happen for reasons that are permanent rather than seeing the transient nature of the positive events. Optimists point to specific temporary causes for negative events. Pessimists point to permanent causes. Second is pervasiveness. Optimistic people compartmentalize helplessness, whereas pessimistic people assume that failure in one area of life means failure in life. Optimistic people allow good events to brighten every area of their lives rather than just the area in which the event occurred. Third is personalization. Optimists blame bad events causes outside of themselves, whereas pessimists blame themselves for events that occur. Optimists are therefore generally more confident. That brings us to the end of the topic. Thanks for watching.